General Hospital, the night the Quartermaines were tested by fate ***. It began like any other evening in Port Charles, but by nightfall, tragedy had once again found its way to the steps of the Quartermaine legacy. Outside Bobby's, the faint glow of the streetlights illuminated a scene that would soon shake the entire family to its core. Ned, the patriarch whose heart had already borne years of familial wars and business betrayals, lay helpless on the cold pavement, his breath shallow, his hand gripping his chest as the pain overtook him. The irony was cruel. Just moments earlier, he had been chasing after Drew, desperate to stop yet another confrontation from spiraling out of control. Drew, blinded by anger and mistrust, had turned his back, literally and figuratively, on a man who had spent a lifetime defending the Quartermaine name. The tragedy unfolded in near silence, broken only by the soft gasp of Emma Scorpio Drake and Gio Palmieri as they stumbled upon Ned's collapsed form. Emma, carrying the steady composure of her parents' medical heritage, reacted first, checking for a pulse. Gio, though shaken, immediately reached for his phone to call 911. The image of the two young souls hovering over Ned, one the granddaughter of General Hospital royalty, the other the estranged son of Brooke Lynn Quartermaine, was as symbolic as it was heartbreaking. Generations collided in that moment, innocence meeting consequence, legacy meeting regret. By the time the ambulance arrived, Ned's consciousness was fading. His mind, clouded with pain, might have remembered Edward, his own father, who once faked a heart attack to test Tracy's loyalty. Life had a way of repeating its cruel lessons, and now Ned, in his most vulnerable state, was living through the echoes of his father's manipulations. Yet unlike Edward's theatrics, this was no test. This was real, and time was running out. At General Hospital, chaos met fear as the staff rushed Ned into emergency care. Olivia Quartermaine received the call first. Her heart, always tethered to Ned's, shattered as she dropped the phone, her body trembling before Lulu Spencer caught her. The two women, both shaped by love, loss, and survival, stood frozen for a moment before reality forced them into action. At the same time, across town, Brooke Lynn's world began to crumble. For all her bravado and stubborn pride, Brooke Lynn had always been her father's greatest defender. The moment she learned Ned had collapsed, her mind spiraled into the past, the arguments, the missed dinners, the unspoken love. The guilt came swiftly, striking harder than the news itself. She should have been there. She should have seen the signs. Panic mixed with grief as she raced toward General Hospital, unaware that the person who had found and saved Ned was her own son, Gio, the child she had lost both physically and emotionally. When Brooke Lynn and Gio came face to face in the hospital corridor, there was no dramatic embrace, only the raw awkwardness of two people bound by blood but divided by time and resentment. Yet beneath the tension, something unspoken shifted. In that sterile hallway, with monitors beeping and doctors shouting, Gio saw his mother not as the woman who abandoned him, but as a daughter desperate to save her own father. And Brooke Lynn saw in Gio a reflection of herself at his age, reckless, passionate, yearning for connection yet too proud to ask for it. While the Quartermaines gathered and prayed, the undercurrent of another crisis rippled through the story. Brooke Lynn's fears about her husband, Harrison Chase, were beginning to consume her. Even before Ned's collapse, she had sensed a growing distance between them. Chase's obsession with helping Willow Tate, his former love, was eroding the foundation of their marriage. Brooke Lynn tried to convince herself it was professional concern, that Chase was merely following his duty as an officer. But deep down, she feared the emotional tether between Chase and Willow was still alive, threatening to undo everything she had built. At the PCPD, Chase's dedication to freeing Willow had become both a strength and a weakness. His desire to clear her name had crossed lines that could jeopardize his career. And though he didn't intend to, his compassion for Willow reignited something within him. A protective instinct that Brooke Lynn could sense but could not confront without tearing herself apart. As the night dragged on, General Hospital became a sanctuary of conflicting emotions. In one room, doctors battled to restart Ned's heart. In another, Olivia clung to Lulu for strength, whispering silent prayers. Brooke Lynn paced outside, wringing her hands, while Gio stood nearby, unsure whether to stay or go. Their silence spoke volumes. Finally, Brooke Lynn turned to her son. The wall of years between them began to crack. Joe's voice trembled as he mentioned Camilla Cerullo, the woman he had mourned, believing her to be his mother. His loss had defined him, hardened him against Brooke Lynn and Dante, his biological parents. But now, watching Brooke Lynn break down before him, he understood pain on a deeper level. He realized that family was not about perfection or constant presence, it was about surviving the moments when everything else falls apart. Their conversation was hesitant but real. For the first time, Brooke Lynn allowed herself to be vulnerable, admitting that she didn't know how to fix what was broken between them. Gio didn't forgive her, not yet, but he didn't walk away either. That, in itself, was a beginning. Inside Ned's room, the faint sound of a heart monitor brought hope. Doctors worked tirelessly, and after what felt like an eternity, they managed to stabilize him. Olivia rushed in, her tears falling freely as she clutched his hand. She had been strong for everyone, but the sight of Ned, pale, unconscious, yet still alive, broke through the shell she had built. Brooke Lynn joined her, collapsing into her mother's arms as Gio quietly stepped closer, his presence both comforting and haunting. The Quartermaines, fractured as they were, gathered in the waiting room. Lulu stayed beside Olivia, while Brooke Lynn sat motionless, staring at the closed ICU doors. The family's prayers filled the air like a chorus of regret and redemption. Even Tracy, far away, would soon hear the news and feel the sting of déjà vu, a reminder of the night Edward once faked death to test her love, and how now her son was the one lying between life and death for real. Outside the hospital, Drew wrestled with the weight of what he had done. His anger had blinded him to Ned's humanity, and now, guilt gnawed at him. His mind replayed the image of Ned falling, clutching his chest, and his own cruel assumption that it had been another act of manipulation. In trying to outwit the ghosts of the Quartermaine past, Drew had become one himself, a man driven by pride and consumed by his own failures. Back inside, the emotional gravity deepened. Brooke Lynn finally found the strength to walk into Ned's room. The rhythmic beep of the monitor filled the silence. She sat beside him, holding his hand, whispering silent apologies that he couldn't yet hear. For all her bravado, she was still the little girl who believed her father could fix everything. Now, she faced the crushing reality that she might lose him forever. Across from her, Gio stood still, torn between the urge to comfort her and the fear of reopening old wounds. He remembered the times he had hated her, cursed her name, and wished her pain. But watching her now, broken and raw, he felt only sorrow. He had found Ned lying helpless and had saved his life. Now, perhaps unknowingly, he was saving Brooke Lynn's as well, giving her a chance to mend not only her family but herself. The night ended without certainty. Ned remained unconscious, his future unknown. But within the shadows of tragedy, something sacred was reborn, the fragile thread of connection that runs through the Quartermaine bloodline. They had been torn apart by greed, betrayal, and pride, but moments like these reminded them that even in chaos, they were bound by love. As dawn approached, Brooke Lynn looked out the hospital window, the first light reflecting off the glass. Gio stood behind her, silent but steady. Olivia and Lulu prayed softly in the background. And though the fate of Ned remained uncertain, one thing was clear, the Quartermaines would not face this storm divided. For in the world of Port Charles, where betrayal often masquerades as loyalty and enemies were the faces of loved ones, the greatest battles are not fought with power, but with forgiveness. And on this night, amid the sterile corridors of General Hospital, forgiveness finally began to breathe again.